Great to be with you too. Well, everybody thought that this Xi Jinping Barack Obama meeting would be inconsequential. And my reading of this press conference and the documents that have come out suggests that it is consequential in three major ways. There's a long laundry list of issues that the US and China are working on, and those were reflected in the statements that you just played. But I think three takeaways for most of the media will be economics, cyber, and climate. So on the economic front, President Xi Jinping has repeatedly tried to reassure US business leaders that the reform process ongoing in China from a very industrial economy towards a more market-driven, open, liberal economy is continuing. So we'll see how that progresses over the weeks and months ahead. Secondly, they were able to reach more sort of momentum on the environment issue. They've already managed to reach some agreements previously on climate emissions. But now we understand that President Xi Jinping is initiating a cap and trade system within China, which will provide, I think, more momentum for the international community going into the Paris UN climate conference coming up. And thirdly, the issue of cyber that you've also mentioned, very, very important to the US business community. It looks as if the level of exchange on this issue will become very high level, and they're setting up a hotline. Back to you.
Right, Daniel. Now, let's be realistic. They both made a lot of positive comments, but there's still a lot of skepticism out there that will we see a breakthrough on some of these difficult topics, such as cyber spying, like you mentioned, and territorial disputes. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's right to be skeptical, because what happens when you get to these high-level meetings is everybody wants to look good. But I think that what I've detected over the past year or two is much more of a sort of get real approach by both sides. So they're willing to address some of the differences. They're willing to use tough language. They're willing to say that they disagree fundamentally on some of the issues. But where they are able to agree, they are going to put a lot of political emphasis. They're going to put a lot of financial weight behind it, a lot of political weight for those in government to implement those strategies. But surely, before we see the results, there are going to continue to be skeptics who say, well, let's see what happens. Let's see how this progresses. I think cybercrime is certainly one of the most sensitive issues they have to deal with. And there are still issues that have to be thrashed out about the way the two sides work. But certainly on a day-to-day basis, it looks as though it's going to become a much more functional relationship.
Right. And Daniel, I mean, looking to the future, Obama's time in office will soon come to an end. How do you think this will impact China-US relations going forward, and of course bilateral trade between the two countries?
Well, I think in the first term of President Obama's administration, underlying the US-China relationship was some real deep weaknesses. And I think that was partially a reflection of the fact that there were two different teams that didn't know each other. The President Obama's team didn't necessarily have all of the people on board that understood all of the dynamics. And as time has gone on, I think there has been this get real attitude by President Obama's team to say, you know, let's have it all personal with President Xi when we have the opportunity to meet, build up the rapport, but at the same time build up the rapport in a way that isn't just a rhetorical flourish every time we meet, but actually addresses some of these deep divisions between US and China relations and the competing interests, but do so in a way which manages them far more effectively. So there's less of the niceties, but certainly more of the tough talk. And when things do get done, it appears that they get done in a slightly more practical and less rhetorical way.